Grace and peace to you on this Ash Wednesday. In the Christian tradition, Ash Wednesday marks the beginning of the season of Lent, which is a season of preparation as we march ever so slowly towards the Passion Week and Easter. 40 days of preparation in all, meant to mimic and feel like a wandering in the wilderness. It is a tradition also in the Christian church to give something up for Lent, and too often that becomes practice and self-help, an opportunity to diet a little bit better. But it's meant to be more than that. What will you give over to God this season? Where in your life do you need to make space and hold space so that God can have a bigger, fuller, more active role in your life? Throughout the service, I hope you'll have time to reflect on that. Again, welcome to worship at First Baptist Church.
We Franciscans are a little odd, and one of our oddities is there's a form we fill out It's called On My Death. It says where you want your funeral mass to be, who you want to do the homily, and et cetera, like that. So 9/11 happened on a Tuesday. Well, the next day, the phone rang, and it was our provincial in New York. And he said, Michael wanted you to do the homily. And I said, well, yes, but this is different. It should be someone with a little more import, so I think you should do it. And there was a long pause, and he said, but Michael wanted you. So, I mean, what are you going to say to that?
Family and friends of Michael Judge, good morning, everyone.
I said to myself, when I see Michael, I'm going to kill him.
I stand in front of you and honestly feel that the homilist at Mother Teresa's funeral had it easier than I do.
There were 3,000 people at his funeral. Church wasn't big enough to hold him. They were outside. Bill Clinton was there, Hillary Clinton, all New York. And the moment arrived, I stood up and I reached in to get my glasses, and I couldn't get to the pocket because my vestment was covering them. Thank goodness I'd practiced it because I couldn't read it.
He loved to bless people, and I mean physically, even if they didn't ask. A little old lady would come up to him, and he'd put his big, thick Irish hands and press the head till I think the poor woman would be crushed.
Everyone thought that Michael Judge was their best friend. He'd remember significant things in their life, and he would write a little note, just 1 or 2 lines. Of course, they'd write him back. So he had a big black satchel filled with letters to answer.
He would say to me once in a while, Michael Duffy, he always called me by my full name, Michael Duffy, you know what I need? And I would get excited because it was hard to buy him a present or anything. I'd say, no, what? You know what I really need? No, what, Mike? Absolutely nothing. I don't need a thing in the world. I am the happiest man on the face of the earth. Why am I so blessed? I don't deserve it. Michael Judge's body was the first one released from Ground Zero. His death certificate has the number 1 on the top. Of the thousands of people who perished in that terrible Holocaust, why was Michael Judge number 1? And I think I know the reason. Michael's goal and purpose in life was to bring the firemen to the point of death so they would be ready to meet their Maker. Michael Judge could not have ministered to them all. It was physically impossible in this life. In the next few weeks, we're going to have name after name of people who are being brought out of that rubble. And Michael Judge is going to be on the other side of death to greet them instead of send them there. And so this morning, we come to bury Mike Judge's body, but not his spirit. We come to bury his voice, but not his message. We come to bury his hands, but not his good works. We come to bury his heart, but not his love. Never his love.
Beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them, for then you have no reward from your Father in heaven. So whenever you give alms, do not sound a trumpet before you as the hypocrites do in the synagogues and in the streets, so that you may be praised by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you give alms, do not let your left hand know what your right hand is doing, so that your alms may be done in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you pray, do not be like the hypocrites, for they love to stand and pray in the synagogues and at the street corners, so that they may be seen by others. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But whenever you pray, go into your room and shut the door and pray to your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you. And whenever you fast, do not look dismal like the hypocrites, for they disfigure their faces so as to show others that they are fasting. Truly, I tell you, they have received their reward. But when you fast, put oil on your head and wash your face, so that your fasting may be seen not by others, but by your Father who is in secret, and your Father who sees in secret will reward you.
What's left to say with these prayers ain't working anymore. Every word shot down in flames. What's left to do with these broken pieces on the floor? I'm losing my voice, calling on you. I've been shaking, I've been bending backwards till I'm broke, watching all these dreams go up in smoke. Let beauty come out of ashes. Let beauty come out of ashes. When I pray to God all night, asking, can beauty come out of ashes? You use these tears to put out the fires in my soul, 'cause I need you here. I've been shaking, I've been bending backwards till I'm broke, watching all these dreams go up in smoke. Let beauty come out of ashes. Let beauty come out of ashes. When I pray to God all night, asking, can beauty come out of ashes? Can beauty come out of ashes?
I have to tell you, sometimes I am envious of those clergy from other denominations who are expected to wear those clerical collars. That little black mock turtleneck with that white square out front is like a billboard that says, "Watch out, I'm doing the Lord's work here." I bet if you wear one of those clerical collars and you walk with enough confidence, you could get in any room in any hospital you wanted. I bet if you wear one of those clerical collars and you walk into a coffee shop, people just usher you to the front of the line. And on days when you were doubting your pastoral vocation, I bet all it takes is putting that clerical collar on, looking in the mirror, and feeling a renewed sense of confidence and call. But I'm willing to guess there's probably some drawbacks too. For instance, I bet it's hard to go anywhere without being stared at, and personally, I'm too much of an introvert for that. Sometimes I just want to be in public without anybody knowing who I am, just completely anonymous. Sometimes I just want to be the guy at the grocery store who's shopping for zucchinis and Cheetos. And I have a hard time imagining you could do that if you're wearing that clerical collar, just perusing the produce. Every time the mister comes on, you feel like you got to bless the vegetables. But if you ever want to kind of know what it must be like to wear one of those collars and get stared at all of the time, wearing ashes on your forehead in the shape of a cross is probably not a bad substitute. I'll never forget when Ash Wednesday fell on February 14th a few years ago, Valentine's Day. I was so focused on the Ash Wednesday service here at the church that I had completely forgotten it was Valentine's, and after the service, Kristen and I decided to walk downtown to get a bite to eat. There was only one problem. Because it was Valentine's, every restaurant was booked solid. Even restaurants that didn't normally take reservations were taking reservations. We kept walking into restaurants only to be told, sorry, we've been booked for weeks. When we finally found a restaurant that had an available table, we quickly discovered why. They were serving a special set menu for Valentine's Day that was priced at well over $100 per person. We must have looked absolutely pitiful to the hostess because without asking, she said, let me go talk to the chef and see what we can do. She came back and she said, he's willing to break from the set menu and to make you all a couple of cheeseburgers and some fries, and we were very grateful. Maybe not the perfect start to a Lenten fast, but still it was dinner. She said, follow me, and she began to lead us to a table clear at the back, but all the way to the back, I kept noticing that all of those couples on their romantic dates for Valentine's kept staring at us, kept stopping mid-sentence to watch us, kept whispering to one another and sort of pointing at us. Confused, I turned to Kristen and I said, are you seeing this? Why is everyone staring at us like that? And Kristen, in her most romantic Valentine's Day voice, said, you're wearing a cross on your forehead in ash, you idiot. Isn't it strange that one of the lectionary texts for Ash Wednesday every year is, beware of practicing your piety before others in order to be seen by them, for then you have no reward from your Father in heaven. In some ways, it seems like a very fitting passage for Ash Wednesday. In it, Jesus addresses the challenge of practicing piety and the temptation to do it for show. He points to the three normative practices for people of faith that have been in place for millennia: fasting, prayer, and almsgiving. And we don't call it almsgiving anymore, we call it charitable giving. The problem seems to have been that it had become a regular practice to do each of these things in such a way that it drew attention to the person practicing it. It had become a show to go out in your fine clothes with your entourage and to make a scene of giving alms to the poor. Let them crowd around you. Let them clamor. Let everyone watch as you distributed money. Or to stand on the corner of a busy intersection and in a loud voice begin praying to God, arms spread wide, looking up to heaven, making a spectacle of yourself. Or to fast, but when you did, to go out of your way not to bathe, not to comb your hair, not to wash your face so that you could look the part, sullen and exhausted by your devotion to God. Jesus had a word for such people. hypocrites. It's a Greek word meaning an actor in a play. In other words, they were people who played a part for the sake of the audience. Jesus says people who put on the show of piety are like that. And because their goal is human attention, well, they've already received their reward. Piety is an old word, one that we probably too easily associate with puritanical practices or simply being a prude. Pious people are those who are saintly, who make a show of the sacrifices required to live an austere life. They are those who we would consider a goody two-shoes. They are holier than thou. And because of those associations, not many of us want to be considered pious. But in the biblical language, piety is not being a prude. Piety is seeking to live a just and righteous life. Not judgmental and self-righteous, but righteous in the sight of God. You see, that's the problem with hypocrites who play act at piety. They're doing it for the wrong audience. So theirs ends up being self-righteousness. But Jesus doesn't say for us to give up piety. He says, just when you do it, make sure you're doing it for the right audience, not so that others will see you, but so that God will see you. You see, keeping it a secret isn't really the important part. Jesus just understood that our human nature is to seek out attention. But what if we practiced our piety in such a way that it wasn't for our benefit, but for the benefit of others? Are we even capable of doing that? It's no easy thing to give up self-righteousness for being righteous in the sight of God, but we are fortunate, we are blessed in that we have examples to look to. This year I keep thinking of John Newton, who famously wrote the hymn Amazing Grace. A slave trader, he had grown attracted to Christianity, and one day when he was in his ship's cabin reading a sermon of John Wesley, he suddenly saw the evil of what he was doing. And he ordered the ship to turn around mid-ocean, and returning to Africa, he set his human cargo free. When he wrote, "'Twas grace that taught my heart to fear, and grace my fears relieved. How precious did that grace appear the hour I first believed." He had grasped the beauty of righteousness. He spoke the simple truth, and he himself became righteous. At its root, in Hebrew, the word means one whose aim is true. Friends, getting those ashes put on your forehead won't make you any holier or more pious than you were before you got them. And they will do the opposite if your goal is to demonstrate to your coworkers or to the checker at the gas station or grocery store or to all of those couples out on their romantic dates just how devout you are. Instead, if today you decide to take the cross on your forehead, go home, take a long, hard look in the mirror and ask yourself, am I striving to be holy or holier than thou? One is a journey that brings us into closer communion with God. And the other has already received its reward. And after you have done that, make sure to wash your face. And then, in secret, where only God can see, go practice piety. The Lord bless you and keep you. The Lord make his face to shine upon you and be gracious unto you. The Lord lift up his countenance upon you and give you peace. Amen. Go in peace.